Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We have a lot to talk about today, and we're going to specifically talk about the Steelers. Let's talk about the Steelers draft, okay? I want to continue to do these draft videos, these draft recaps while it's still kind of post-draft, we're still talking about it, and right before the schedule starts, because I will be doing, every single team will be getting an off-season breakdown, a predictions video. I'll have a whole Excel chart basically saying this is how I think the NFL season is, and we're going to look back, and I'm going to make a whole recap video. It's a whole thing. I got things planned for y'all, but I want to talk about the Steelers because they probably had one of the most polarizing drafts, as they drafted the first quarterback off the board in the first round, the only quarterback in the first round. I can't remember the last time that happened, and it was the first quarterback until round 3. That's insane to think about, and they went with Kenny Small-Hand Pickett. Okay, I know I was wrong for that. I like Kenny Pickett. I actually made a video that I took down after a while because it was trash. It was absolutely terrible, where I said the Steelers are going to go with Kenny Pickett. He's the hometown kid. He gets to stay in Pittsburgh. It's just a dream come true because honestly, during the college football season, this dude was looking like the second coming of Joe Burrow. We're talking about a guy that came in, he was super raw coming into Pittsburgh, and then slowly got better and better and better, and then last year of his eligibility, broke out. Had the best wide receiver on his team in all of college football, and Jordan Addison, who is actually in the transfer portal now, which that's crazy to think about. But the Steelers went and picked him up. But before I get into all this, I will not be making a ton of videos like on a daily basis like I have been, mainly because I am working on a video essay for y'all. That's something that I'm really excited about to get started. Also, don't judge me for the beard. I know, I got to get it cleaned up. Okay, I hear ya. I got to get this cleaned up. But let's get into the first guy that was off the board for the Pittsburgh Steelers, a team that has one of the best defenses in the league, one of the most inconsistent offenses in the entire league, who just lost their best quarterback in franchise history, Ben Roethlisberger, went with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett was a quarterback out of Pitt, which is ironic because he is actually going to be staying home, like I previously mentioned. And I'm going to calm down a little bit. I know I've just spewed off 1,000 words a minute, and I'm going to calm down. Let's talk about this pick because there's a lot of controversy with it. A lot of people were expecting Malik Willis. There's a lot of smoke with the Steelers potentially wanting Malik. I'll put a couple of headlines up if Editor Tegan will do so. But I think it was a good pick, not great. I understand that there was a lot of people that were hoping that this would be a Mitchell Trubisky revenge tour, as a lot of people believe he still has a lot of talent. I don't think he can read an NFL defense as well as people are wanting him to be. And I understand Matt Nagys was a terrible head coach, and he has clearly ruined a little bit of Justin Fields as well. But I wouldn't put all the blame on Matt Nagy. Mitchell Trubisky was a very raw quarterback to be picked at number 2. It was a reach from the beginning. He is a quarterback that had a ton of talent, but I don't know if he really works well in an NFL offense. I don't think he reads defenses as well. He a lot of times gets baited by corners and safeties from the film that I've watched, and unless he has fixed all of those things like we had hoped with Sam Darnold in Carolina, Mitchell Trubisky is not a quarterback that you want to bank on potentially with a roster that is this good. Now, he'd probably be in the best situation that he's ever been in. Now, the offensive line is still a little bit shaky, and I don't love it, which is something that I don't love for Kenny Pickett if he does end up getting playing time. It's definitely going to be a quarterback battle, and now they're very high on Kenny Pickett. Clearly, they went with him in the first round when there was plenty of other players that they could potentially go with, and I think it'll be a quarterback battle from the very get-go. Now, I think Mitchell Trubisky has a lot of potential, and he should be the guy that wins this job. And we're talking about an offense. They have Deontay Johnson, who is an up-and-coming wide receiver. They have a wide receiver that I also think could be very good, and Chase Claypool, and they went with another wide receiver in the second round. I don't love the pick that in the second round, but we'll get to that in a minute. I think that there's plenty of weapons on this offense, not to mention you have Najee Harris, who is a breakout star at the running back position. I don't love the offensive line. I don't love the tight end position. I don't love the play calling either. Now, unless they've had a revolutionary change. Now, for the past couple years, we've only seen Big Ben throw checkdowns every couple plays. And that might work well for Kenny Pickett or Mitchell Trubisky to get the ball into their playmakers' hands. Where I have a slight problem is I don't love the fit. And I didn't love Kenny Pickett coming out of the draft as more I got into his film. He had a great offensive line in the ACC in which he didn't have to really make a ton of plays on his legs. Now, he was able to, but a lot of the times the throws that he was making that were super accurate, he had 5, 6, 7 seconds in the pocket, and that's just not what's going to happen in the AFC North. Now, I do think the hands thing are blown out of proportion. It's hand size I don't love that he's in Pittsburgh with that hand size, but clearly, if he's been able to play at Pitt, I think he could do so. He's got the 2 hands with the 2 gloves. I love it. I love it. I've always been a fan of Teddy 2 gloves, but I don't love the fit with Kenny Pickett, mainly because he's going to be dealing with an offensive line that isn't as good as it was in Pitt, and he's not going to have the same amount of time. Now, unless he's being able to be developed for a year, I think it's pretty good. But the thing is they go with a first-round quarterback, and I've always been of the ideology, unless he's super raw like a Trey Lance, or I think they should have sat Justin Fields for a year. This is something where he is a 4th-year senior, or I believe potentially a 5th-year senior. You got to play the guy a little bit this year. Now, unless Mitchell Trubisky is a standout star, you just wasted a first-round pick. I don't believe that they should have gone with Kenny Pickett, mainly because I feel like there's better guys on the board. And maybe if Trubisky doesn't work this year, you potentially go with the quarterback next year. It's a very weird roster right now. You have a fantastic defensive player of the year in TJ Watt, and a great, honestly, fantastic defense that has a little bit of a hole on the secondary. Now you have Minkah Fitzpatrick as well, which is a great guy as well. I didn't love the pick when I saw it. I understand that they have their guy, and I've always been of the ideology, if you believe that you have your guy, you go all in on him. But there's just red flags with Kenny Pickett that show that I don't love the fit in Pittsburgh. And it's just, I don't love the creativity on their offense, and it's something that I think would do well with Kenny Pickett. Now, they could be completely different. It could be completely different now that they don't have a quarterback that is practically a tortoise on 2 legs. Like, I don't love it, but I could be completely wrong. And it doesn't show that I love what they did in later rounds as well. With that being said, in the 2nd round, they went with a stud wide receiver, a controversial guy, in George Pickens. George was probably one of the biggest anomalies in this entire draft. We're talking about a freak athlete, like Calvin Johnson level freak athlete, who was not able to stay on the field for most of his career. He had a ton of off-field red flags. I mean, even on the field, this dude was a menace. I mean, if you want to go see, I'll maybe put up a GIF of what his reaction was to being drafted to the Pittsburgh Steelers. This dude gives off AFC North energy. If you don't know what that means, this division for years has been a dogfight. They want just dudes who are going to be maulers out there, physicality, and he just gives off those vibes. Now, the thing with George Pickens I don't love is the Steelers for years have gotten guys on the wide receiver position that have been either divas or guys that are very loud personalities. Now, they are a ton of talent. We saw with Juju Smith-Schuster draw a lot of unnecessary attention to himself. Antonio Brown, they Chase Claypool as well. I would say it's more unnecessary. And I think George Pickens has a ton of talent. There's a reason why, for a guy that barely played in college, got the position where he is a 2nd round pick. And if he's able to stay on the field, that's fantastic. This dude is a freak athlete. He's one of the best athletes in this entire draft. I'd just be more concerned that this dude was just not on the field. He was just not on the field. He was a good run blocker, and in an offense that you're going to need run blocking wide receivers such as Chase Claypool, and you can get Deontay Johnson in motion, I think it's a good fit. I just don't know for the culture of it. I don't know if George Pickens is going to handle being a 3rd wide receiver on this team. Now, he could buy in, and I think it would be a fantastic fit, but this was a very much risky pick after you went with another risky pick in the 1st round. This draft could easily flip on its head and not be a good look for the Steelers. Now, I have complete faith that the Steelers culture, I mean, they're practically the Miami Heat right now. They have so much of this culture, and I love Mike Tomlin, and this is why I feel like I have trust with this organization that these draft picks are going to work out. But on the surface level, there's so many red flags. Kenny Pickett, I think, has a ton of red flags on being the quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers, not to mention the quarterback room itself. Wide receiver room, I don't love the George Pickens pick. It has a ton of upside. I think this dude could be the best wide receiver on a Super Bowl team. That's how much talent George Pickens has. But I think there's a lot of surface level things that concern me. Now, I think it's a very interesting pick. All of these picks are very interesting. I think the safest pick that they had, and honestly the pick that I love the most, was their 3rd round pick, the Marvin Liao. The Steelers' offensive line is aging very quickly. I mean, they have a ton of guys that are pretty good. I think Cameron Hayward's still on the roster. Stephon Tuitt is still on the roster. They have a lot of really good guys, but they are getting older. And one guy that I loved coming out of this draft was Marvin Liao, a guy that was projected to potentially be a top 5 pick who had fallen after a disappointing junior year at Texas A&M. Not to mention he didn't, combine very well. He didn't have a very stunning combine. But this dude gives off Steelers energy when it comes to the defensive line. He is very much versatile. He could be in or out. I think he's the best when he's on the outside. He's a much bigger guy. I think he is a NFL built guy to potentially be on the interior of that defensive line. I love the pick. I think it's a very good value pick. This could potentially be the best pick of their entire draft. I think they reached on both George Pickens and Kenny Pickett. I didn't love the positions that they were in or the value picks that they got. But when we're talking about value, I think Marvin Liao has first round potential. This dude was a great athlete in college and he was a monster. He was double teamed practically every play. He's the reason why guys like Michael Clemens was able to get one-on-ones on the outside and they got drafted by, I believe it was the Jets. I'll make a Jets video most likely as well. I think this was the best value pick. I think this dude has a ton of upside. He's going to be learning off of guys that are like some of the best pass rushers. He's going to get a lot of one-on-one opportunities, which is something that he didn't get a lot of in college because you got guys like TJ Watt that are taking triple teams at times. I mean, that dude is a freak. I think he's one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. But I think this was a pretty solid draft. I think this selection is what really kind of saves it. I think this overall draft was a B to a B+. I think there's a lot of things that could bust from this team, but I think when you look at it for what their roster is, there's a lot of upside with these draft picks. Maybe Kenny Pickett is the rookie of the year. I think maybe he is the most pro ready, and if they believe that they want a guy that could just get the ball into their playmakers' hands, Kenny Pickett can do so. I think he has a pretty quick release. His release is pretty mechanical overall. George Pickens, if he stays on the field, he's one of the most talented guys in this draft. Marvin Liao, I think, is one of the safest prospects. And I think past Marvin Liao, you have guys like Calvin Austin. I think he was a pretty good value pick. They brought in another quarterback, which I think just shows a little bit more that they want some competition in that room. I think they have a lot of good upside picks. I didn't love what the Steelers did, but I think it's getting a little too much hate. But I think it's just a kind of draft. I think it has a lot of upside, but it could easily backfire. I don't know if there's much of a middle ground in between that. If you're at this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. We are talking all about draft, and I'm going to be making a ton of content for you guys. Thank you so much for 235 subscribers. I love this channel so much. I'm going to be posting as much as I can. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Go kill it at some finals. Have a wonderful day.